All right, everybody, and welcome to Hard Rock History, Episode 9. I am your host, Paulie Christine. I have my special guest co-host, Tom Coyne, and today, a legend, a legend of heavy metal and hard rock. This guy is a drummer, a producer, an author, and a New Yorker. That's the biggest thing, a New Yorker. Carl Canedy, drummer of the Rods. Carl, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me on. I love the intro. You played me up a little more than I deserve, but thanks so much.
No, my man, you got it. You have an amazing history.
And
So no,
I want to say, I am a New Yorker.
you know what? Listen, we bust balls down here, and we say upstate. You're practically a Canadian.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And people say upstate to me, and it's like an hour out of the city. But upstate, where I grew up, Myra, Ithaca, Cortland, that's upstate. And that's not even all upstate. There's still Rochester and all.
it's so vast. It's
It's a big
ridiculous.
state. Yeah, it's a big
Yeah,
state.
yeah. So how far are you from Niagara?
Well, I'm in Scranton now,
Oh,
Scranton,
okay.
PA.
Oh, you're a
So
PA. Okay.
yeah, so I'm away. You know, 5 hours maybe, something like that.
Oh,
When you grew up in Brooklyn like me and Paul, Yonkers is considered upstate to us.
right.
That's true. All my friends are like, "Yeah, we're going upstate." I'm like, "Oh, you're coming up this way?"
Right.
Oh, no, no,
A
Monticello.
half hour
Yeah,
over the GW is upstate to us.
yeah, you're going to Woodstock. That's upstate.
Right.
It's funny. The farthest I ever got. Well, no, I went to Niagara Falls and stuff, and I love like the ice wine up there. You go
Okay.
check out the vineyards and stuff like that around there. And the farthest I got, I went to the Chance in Poughkeepsie to go see Gary Moore
All right. We played there. Roger played there a couple of times.
in
That
a
was a
friggin'
great,
in a
great
friggin'
place.
snowstorm.
Yeah. Gary
Crazy.
Moore was great. I've seen Gary Moore several times before he died. In fact, my
Yeah.
buddy Craig Gruber played with him, and I saw him as
That's
well
right, he
in
did. Yeah.
yeah, in France at Les Bourget Breaking Sound Festival. It was me, Neil Turbin, Rhett Forrester, Gary Bordenero, Paul Kane, and who else was on that? Well, I guess I guess me. I don't remember everybody else, but I think that was all. But it was cool, and I remember going on stage and seeing Craig playing with Gary Moore, and I was standing on the side of stage watching him, and finally he came over and he saw me and freaked out during their show. But Gary Moore was fantastic.
Ah,
That was like what, about 1984?
86 maybe.
86? Okay.
yeah, because Wild Frontier was the last time he played the rock stuff. And then the
Hmm.
90s still got the blues came out. So 86 would have been like after the war or Run for Cover. That's
Yeah,
what it was doing.
I've seen him a number of times, including in LA at the Forum, and he was just phenomenal. And Craig, interesting thing about Craig was, or Craig said about Gary Moore, he said a few things, told me a bunch of stories. I'll only tell a couple, but
Yeah.
he said that one thing was Gary Moore went through the entire set before he did a show, played his entire show, beginning to end, before he did the show.
That was his sound check?
No, he played it in the dressing room.
Oh,
Really?
Jesus.
Yeah,
By himself?
ran through the whole thing by himself. And
Wow.
then but Craig also said, I mean, I get that because I usually warm up for an hour before I go on stage. So if we're playing for an hour and a half, I've already warmed up for solid hour on my practice pads. But he also said that when they rehearsed, they start at 10, they'd end at 5. They would take two 15-minute breaks and they'd have like 45 minutes for lunch. And he said the rest of the time they were rehearsing. And he said if you made more than one or two mistakes, he would just chew your ass out.
Well, he was
That's what he
militant
was
that
known
way.
for. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
But I mean, he was flawless, and that's why he was so good.
Well, that's
But
why he went
anyway,
through a number of musicians too, you know?
yeah, that's right. You can always tell the musicians who are difficult to work with because they don't have really long relationships.
Right.
Blackmore,
Mm,
same way.
Right.
Blackmore.
You know?
Blackmore, and I probably shouldn't tell this story, but
Tell it.
Blackmore, David, David Rock Feinstein from the Rods. David always loved Richie Blackmore. In fact, I remember him telling me that when he met Richie, he said, you're one of my favorite guitarists. And Richie said, well, who's your favorite? And he goes, Jeff Beck. And but he said, he would hang with Richie, and we did shows with Rainbow, and Richie loved David. They were buddies. And Richie came to Cortland last year, and David sent a note back with, he knows that the promoters and all the people, got a note and said, I'm here. I'd love to say hi. And Richie snubbed him completely. They said Richie
Really?
snubbed everybody. Richie was a real bastard, but that's Richie. Like Craig told me when he was with Rainbow and they were recording for the next album, he said we were playing and he said we stopped. Richie went into the control room. They all talked, and he goes, then Richie disappears, and we sit there for another half an hour. And of course, you're afraid to move. I'm sure, being like, you're hired gun. And then the manager came in, Bruce came in and said, "Thanks, but you guys are all fired, except for Ronnie."
Except for Ronnie, right?
Except for Ronnie,
Right.
which
Yeah,
was
because he
his,
had he had Elf. He had
yeah,
the backing
that was
band of
his
Elf.
that was his game plan anyway all along. But and smart move. Ronnie wouldn't have left if he had just tried to pull him from Elf.
Right.
That was his baby.
I got two Richie stories that I've heard personally. So Graham said that after they went to record the I Surrender album, basically, and he would go in the studio, and it'd be him and Don Airy, and they
Hmm.
just fucking sit there, and they're like, "What are we doing?" And Graham did like the backing vocals to I Surrender, and and like a couple of days would go, and no one would even show up until they finally said, "What the fuck am I doing here?" And then Cozy gave him the call, and he went to Shanka, right? So then the next one is the Stranger in Us All tour. One of the members I spoke to that I was good friends too with, he said that Richie was so paranoid back then at that time, he used to leave a tape recorder in the dressing room
Mm.
to see if they would talk shit about him.
Wow.
Imagine.
The way I approach that is, I know everyone's going to talk shit about me when I'm not around, and I don't want to hear
Right.
Right. If you can't say it to my face, fuck you, basically.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, that's right. I feel that way.
All right, let's get to you, my man. So I always start with the origins of people. Did you come from a musical family? And what music set you onto this path?
No, not a musical family at all. And I mean, early on, I'm kind of like, and I say this, I compare it all the time because to me it's humorous and it's humor is sometimes the best humor is based in truth. But I was very poor, and it was just me and my mother. My parents had separated, and so I was probably 6 years old or so. And I remember the first record I bought was Purple People Eater, which years later, sitting with the songwriter or the performer, was it Sheb Woolley, whatever his name is. Um, we sat at New Music Seminar, and I got to hang out with him for a few hours, and it was cool to talk to him. But it was also pretty amazing that I'd been a kid. It was the first record I ever bought, and but my mother would have the radio on. It was always like Lawrence Welk shit and stuff like, oh God. And if you ever saw the movie The Jerk, born a poor black child, of course he
Hmm.
was white, and he's lying there, and suddenly he the music changes, and suddenly now he's hearing like some kind of a swing and white people music, and his feet start moving. Eventually I changed the dial on the radio. And suddenly I was hearing rock, which was where I heard Purple People Eater. So suddenly that changed for me. Suddenly I'm like, wow, this stuff is really cool. And I'd always wanted to be a drummer from the time I was 4.5 when my mother took me to a wedding reception. And I saw the drums, and it was like, to me, it was like the white light shone down and Hallelujah singers. And it's like, oh my God, it was just transfixed. I just couldn't stop thinking about it. I wanted to play drums. So that was what it was for me, and then I was obsessed with it the rest of my life, and I still am. I mean, here I am at my drums now, and just finished recording a track for a new album that we're doing. So that another project with Billy Sheehan, Mike Santosiero from Canedy, the vocalist, and John Hahn. He was a Leviathan, Mike Varney discovery. Played with the band Harpo, phenomenal guitarist. But that was it for me. That was the start, and of loving music. And then finally we moved to California, and I was probably 8 then, maybe 9, and I wanted to play drums. And of course, the drum chairs are always the first thing to go. And so I wound up with clarinet. which I still have. And if you'd like me to play it for you, I can run and grab it for you. No, I'm kidding.
What any drummers you were attracted to that made you go that path also, or just the
No,
drums itself?
doing my autobiography, I thought, you going through it, I thought it was going to be 2 months because Doc Phil Harrington was transcribing my audio. So I thought I can knock this shit out so fast. And then 2 years later, it was finalized, and we were we were like 50 pages over. I said, "You just edit it because I can't do it anymore." And so we had to edit that out of the book, the extra 150 pages. But no, there were no drummers. I didn't know how they worked. I didn't know what drums were about. I just knew that, oh my God, I want to play drums. And then I got a practice pad. I was probably, I want to say 11, something like that. I had this crappy little wooden practice pad, which had the thinnest piece of rubber on it. So it was like playing on wood. And I started playing with that. And then my cousin, who had been a drummer in a band called the Upsetters, they're a funk band, he convinced my mother that, I think he has some talent. And so a little bit, by the time I was 13, I'd been begging for drums, and it was just my mother, and she had no money. So, but eventually I found this guy who had a music store in Elmira, and it was a Japanese drum set called Gracie drums, and they were horrible. I mean, they were just the cheap, cheap line of Japanese drums. And I say horrible, but based on what I'd like to have as a real drum set.
Sure.
And stuff was chrome. The chrome would wear off, and it was just, crap. But it was my first drum set. So I brought him to where my mother worked at the post office and presented her with this contract for $365 for the drum set and installment plan. I think it was $65 a month, and that's how I got my first drum set. But
And
no,
what
I
year are
had
we
no.
talking now, Carl?
That's a good question. I was 13, so that was 60 years ago. So going way back. So it was
So are you born in the 50s?
53.
Yeah, yeah. So that'd be mid 60s. It would be then with you.
Yeah.
So now it's the same thing now. Were you into the Doors then? Were you into the Rolling Stones? Like what musical path were you listening to then when that was happening?
When I got my first drum set, I had a little, because again, had no money. I had this little RCA, no, it was a Singer, which was a weird brand, Singer, like the sewing machine, portable record player. And that's how I started playing. And I started playing it wasn't drummers I was listening to. I was listening to what eventually I learned and was able to correspond with him several times was Hal Blaine, the famous session musician,
Hmm.
session drummer. And I didn't know that Hal was on all these recordings. I would go buy a 45. Couldn't always afford an album, so I go buy 45s. And I put it on, and it would be just that little speaker, and I'd be tapping along, like trying to hear it and learn from it. And I did. I learned. I copied everything. And but there were no special drummers. And then Blue Cheer, I saw Blue Cheer on Dick Clark in my little black and white TV. It almost blew the freaking speaker out. So I had it cranked, and they were so loud. And you know, like I always say, like Paul Whaley, when I produced The Beast Is Back for that band, I should have sent him a bill for all the freaking broken drumsticks and cracked cymbals that happened because of watching him play like a madman. I'm like,
Brutal,
oh,
man.
well, and that's what, up until then, I was just like, teet, teet, pat, teet, 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 pat, teet, 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 teet,
Right.
teet. And then suddenly I saw him and I went, oh, okay, animal time. And I went nuts and changed my whole everything and started breaking everything. And, it totally changed. And then Vanilla Fudge, Carmine Appice became the first drummer Mitch Mitchell was huge for me. Keith Moon, Ginger Baker, those guys, they were my guys. But Carmine Appice was like my favorite drummer, despite how much I love those other guys, including Bonham. I always leave Bonham out, but Bonham's a given for every drummer. Like
Yeah.
if you look at like the top three drummers, every drummer, no matter how good they are, no matter how technical, they're all Bonham, Buddy Rich, and Ringo. Like it's the same top three drummers. So that was kind of how it went for me. And then Carmine, I just was self-taught. And then I started taking lessons at a store called Knapp's Music in Elmira. And this drum teacher was just told me I was shit. I'd never be any good. And I was like, after a while, like I'm not the brightest guy, but after a while, I was like, every week you're bringing this guy money, and he just tells you you're suck and you'll never be good. In fact, he was a NARD drummer, National Association of Rudimental Drummers, and I thought that's so cool. Like this, I'm like, wow, that is so cool. And so I said, do you think if I practice really hard one day, I could be a NARD drummer too? And he's like, ha, no way, no way. And I was like, oh my God. So eventually, um, Andy Weiss saw me playing in Hazleton at a club where we were in residence for a week or two at a time. And we got to be friends, and he was an instructor, and he's like, let's test for the NARD. And I did, and I got it, and I was like, oh,
Oh, that's great.
there you go, pal.
Right.
And I have it hanging to this day. I should bring it up here and hang it, but I have it hanging. And there was a big, big fu to that guy. But
And that guy was teaching kids.
he was teaching. Yeah, I was 13. He was teaching me and telling me I'm shit. And then it's my daughter and I. She's a music teacher, and she's the real musical talent in the family. But we talk about so many times you meet people and they give you this great rap about, oh yeah, so like we transpose this right on the fly, and we do this and we do that, and we both just shut up. And then later we talk. We go, wow, I was afraid to say anything because that guy must be phenomenal. Like they must be incredible. And then you hear them, and now we both look at each other and we don't say anything, but we both look at each other and go, they must be tremendously mediocre because all the people that just rave about how great they are
Right.
usually turn out to be pretty mediocre. So, but anyway, I was 19. So after that guy, and I'm like, why am I bringing this guy money? I stopped, and then I just practiced and listen to records and learn. In fact, I want to go see Grand Funk. They're coming here and to Wilkes-Barre. And I remember I had a little crappy drum set up against the wall, and I was learning triplets. And Mark Farner, or not Mark Farner, Don Brewer played these triplets. I'd play them for you now, but I think it'd be too loud. But
Do what you want.
I practiced that for hours. I didn't know how, oh, okay, we got to do this. And I practiced it and till I got it. But then was 19, 20 or 19, I think, 19 or 20. Must be 20. I saw an ad in the Musicians Union paper, Carmine Appice giving drum lessons. And so I called and I
Wow.
was like, oh my God, this is cool. So I called and answers the phone. I'm like, yeah, I'm calling about Carmine Appice's, he goes, this is Carmine. I was like, what? I couldn't believe I was talking to my hero. And so I wound up taking lessons from Carmine, and it was a life-changing thing for me. He was so cool, and the opposite of the teacher I had. So I had developed some bad habits, which I probably have some still, but there were things I did. Like I did this, like a four-stroke roll with my left hand, and he's like, technically that's not correct, but it's cool, so keep it. And then other things, he goes, you don't have to play that hard. You don't have to play this. And he was very cool about keep the cool stuff that I was doing and let's fix the stuff that wasn't. But he was never negative, very positive the whole time. And he was a great educator. And he gave me all the confidence to go through his books. And it was a great experience. But the thing that was the fact that he was just a cool guy and very humble, and you can see it in his clinics. I've seen Carmine a number of times now in his clinics. In fact, my friend saw him in Rome for a Vanilla Fudge show, and he was said to say hi to me. But he's a great guy. But he was, after the experience I'd had, it had been so off-putting to have somebody who was like on a pedestal for me, to just be a down-to-earth guy without a big ego. Because most of the guys in New York State, where I was in that area, they would come out and they would do the stand in front of you like this, like,
Right. Determine you.
yeah,
Yeah.
and they would give you, and they were like, yeah, he sucks, everybody sucked, and nobody was supportive. Like the Seattle people, when I saw that about the Seattle people, how they were like, yeah, the one band would bring the next one along, and that was their whole thing. Like somebody got a deal or got a break, share it with your friends, you bring
Right.
them along, but not that way. in Elmira, they were just, it was nasty. I couldn't wait to get out of that area because it was unpleasant.
Let
So
me ask you,
Carmine,
with Carmine, so was this pre-Rod Stewart or after Rod Stewart?
No, this was Beck Bogan and Appice period.
Oh,
that's right.
oh wow, wow.
Yeah.
That's heavy.
In
That's
fact,
some big stuff there.
it was after Cactus. It was actually before Beck Bogert and Appice, or maybe it was after. No, it might have been after. And but he was the keyboard player. He had two houses, and he had in Hempstead, Long Island, and he had which is that's not upstate for you guys, is it? That's downstate, right?
Long
Hempstead.
Island?
Hempstead. Yeah.
Yeah, it's this way.
Yeah, it's sideways for you
We don't
guys.
even acknowge Long Island all that much.
Yeah,
That's right. It's
it's not
side
even
state.
considered one of the boroughs, Carl.
Yeah. so so they so he oh sorry, one second.
No, you good.
He so I forgot what I was saying. He had these two houses, and the keyboard player from you remember that band Blood Rock?
Yes.
We were flying low and we crashed and they wake up and where's my arm or whatever that song was. Like it was a cool song, but it was creepy lyrics. And so that keyboard player was there in the living in the house. They were starting a band, and which apparently didn't get off the ground. But and he at the time he was telling me he was talking about the fudge, and at the time he said that Tim was really not into doing it. That's why they had an offer, and Tim at the last minute didn't want to sign. Some story about that, because I always loved the fudge, and I'm glad they're still going. Mark seems like Mark Stein doesn't age.
I know. It still has the same.
Just,
I get maybe it's a wig, but it still looks like he has the same hairdo.
oh yeah, no, I think he might have some kind of accoutrement,
Right.
but I think
In addition,
yeah, he might have some kind of an enhancement there. But
yeah.
his face though, and he sings great, and
No, he does,
and he looks the same.
And Carmine just did an all-star Cactus lineup too recently.
Yes, yeah.
With Billy and Tony Franklin. It was forget about that lineup.
Yeah.
Bumblefoot. It was crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I checked it out. Billy's amazing. Another great guy, and I'm really glad we did this album together. And I can't wait for people to hear it.
How many tracks you down now with the new album?
8
tracks,
great. I think. And we did the first 3, and we mix it and we shopped it because I wanted to. There was a label I wanted that I felt really strongly about having, and they offered us a deal. But Billy felt like let's wait till the whole album is done and mixed, and then we'll see what's out there because everybody wants 10 years. Nobody wants to give you much money up front, and I understand that because we get tons of royalties that come in, but it's not you could put it in a wheelbarrow and it wouldn't weigh anything. It's the Dead Sea Scrolls of royalties. Oh, look at this, we had a million plays and blah blah, and it's you're lucky at getting a few $100s.
Right.
But you have to, and anymore you have to have all the ancillary streams, income streams, or you don't have any money. Fortunately for us, we do have some of that, so we do get regular money, and it's steady. So
that's good. So now, how do we get to the rods?
So I was in Boston, and I went to play with a band called Colacas. I was with Jack Stella and the Northern Lights, biggest Eagle guy I'd ever met, but he actually didn't hire me. I actually came back to Pennsylvania. He didn't hire me. He said he thought I was too flashy and too good for the band. So now the other guys are all Juilliard, Boston Music, Berkeley. These guys were brilliant musicians in that band. I had no reason for me to be in that band, but they liked me, the other musicians. So they hired another drummer, and after 2 weeks, they called me and said, we fired that guy. We told Jack we want you in the band. So I went back and played with them. And that while I was in Massachusetts playing with Jack Stella and the Northern Lights, the most like the guy, it's just exact classic example. We could do a whole other show about musicians who know how to book gigs, but are not very good. But they get other musicians because it's a gig and musicians need to work. So the guys from Colacas came and they said, just come. They were begging me, please just come and stay. We have a house, come and stay. I went and stayed with them. I left Jack Stella, and I went and stayed with them for a couple of weeks in a gelled. And we started working with the same goals. We wanted to get a recording contract. And so we moved to New Jersey and we played, but then we wound up moving upstate. And then, of course, I had known David and Elf with Ronnie for years because my band Raw Meat, which would have been called Brian's Idols, um, we rehearsed in this Finnish garage and they rehearsed in the house. So I knew David and I knew Ronnie and Doug and everybody and Gary. I was good friends with Gary Driscoll. Um, I just want to say, Gary, I know I'm going off on all these
That's
tangents,
fine.
but Gary Driscoll, I just finished the last drum track for this album, I was saying. But on every album that I do, I include a little Gary Driscoll kind of drum feel. And there was one in that where I took a piece from Gambler Gambler from Elf. It's very, very brief with this little cowbell thing, but I added it to it. My drum tech was like, he thought it was really cool. I'm like, is that cheesy? He goes, no, it's great. It's perfect for the song. But so when Colossus started playing, we started opening for Thunder and playing shows, festivals with Thunder, David and Joey DeMeo in that band. And so that's how that happened. David and I, had been friends, so now we were friendly once again, and we decided we would start a project, and that's how the Rod started. Actually, David, Joey, and I started working together very briefly. We recorded some things in my house on a little 4-track, and that's how and then just I guess it just wasn't working with David and Joey. I don't know what the problem was. I don't remember if maybe there was no problem. So David and I started the Rods, and Joey asked me to join Manowar, which I did because the Rods had been playing there. I'm like, yeah, I love what Manowar was doing.
Wow.
But that's how
With Eric and Ross?
yes.
Wow.
Yeah, so no, right at the begin, right, the genesis of Manowar was me going there. We all worked on those songs. I went to New York. I stayed at Ross's place, which I just did an interview for Sweden Rock. They're doing a big tribute to Ross,
Yeah.
and we talked about Ross in the early days, and recently, and so. But anyway, so I was there for that whole thing when they auditioned and went to New York and the whole record deal thing, and then at some point I just had to make a decision. And the fact that I wrote songs, and the fact that I didn't think I would look good in any kind of a
In
loincloth.
the long did you cut any demos?
Yeah, there's
So
a
what
demo
was
out.
like Fast Taker or Battle Hymns or any Metal Days? Was any of that around?
Battle Hymn on all the songs from the first album. There are a number.
Manowar.
No,
Okay.
no.
What
I
else?
don't even. I'm trying to think. Battle Hymn.
Yeah,
I have
Fast Taker,
to
Heavy
listen.
Metal Days. William, Joey Solo. No, Tom, you don't have a file on Manowar?
Not at my disposal. No, I have like about 20 albums, but
And so nothing happened with that. You don't have the demos or anything of that call.
I actually have. I have rehearsal tapes that I made. Yeah, I have those. And plus, that demo is out there. It's on YouTube. You can
Oh,
go
it is.
find it.
Oh, I gotta check
Yeah,
that
you
out.
can find it. Not all the songs we recorded, but all the songs that got assigned to EMI.
Did you feel like their trajectory was going to go up with the stuff, the material that they were creating?
No doubt, no doubt they were going to be huge. It was not a question in my mind. I thought the material was phenomenal. We all worked well together. Like it was Joey and I were a great rhythm section. Ross was so. I mean, I think it's clear, and not to denigrate or dismiss anything Man at War has done since Ross left, but Ross was a big catalyst in that
Absolutely,
songwriting.
absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah.
The
And
feel, the lead, the tone, everything was about Ross. Seriously.
yeah, yeah.
But
And
he was
Ross was such a cool guy. Ross and I got along well, and but Ross, like he never. And I have to say, Joey didn't either. Joey was cool. They never edited my parts. Like I noticed on the first Manowar, if you listen to the demo, like they made Donnie cop my parts, but they were cool. Like they let me create whatever I felt, and no issues. It was very, very synergistic in the room. And of course, Eric was.
just
What do you
blows you
say?
away, right?
Yeah, he
Is
was phenomenal. But
is
the
it
band
true?
was,
Was he a butcher
yeah,
previous? Right?
I believe so. Yes.
That's what I've
Crazy,
always read. Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great job. Being a butcher.
You'll never starve.
That's right. So, yeah. So anyway, so that's how David and I had started the Rods, and we were playing all over, and then we wound up just taking
Well,
it
let
from
me
there.
ask
And
you: was the idea to be a power trio all along?
we never, I don't know. It was just the three of us. We actually asked Steve Starmer, someone David knew, and that's how it was. It was never, David is never going to play with another guitarist, and that's it. And if you give him an acoustic guitar, people will ask him to turn down. He's got one volume, it's on 10 the whole time. He's loud, and that's him. That's what I love about him.
And what about
So
vocal wise? Was he going to be the front man also? Was that the idea?
it was never thought out that way. I was singing back then. I
Okay.
wrote songs. I even sang on the Rod's album, a couple of
Mhm.
Rod's albums. Not that I should have, but I did. And that's been the story of my life. Too dumb to know better. Should have been the title of my book. Too dumb to know better. But
So
it just worked. David and I gelled from day one. We really clicked, and so did and Joey and I clicked with the Man of War thing clicked as well. I think we
did
all
you
came from the same era, so we had a lot of back influences. We were always influenced by heavy, and we wanted to take it a little further.
shop it around, and did record companies come down to see the gig? How did Arista get to you?
Arista was Pete Morticelli from Rochester. He knew we were playing around. Pete decided he wanted to be our manager. I sent a 45. We did it on my label. We produced the album ourselves. We were $35,000 in debt when we got our deal. And we would be mixing and we'd be calling girlfriends and friends. Do you have $35? I think it was $35 then, 45, 35 an hour. We're trying to mix a song. Are you good for like a song or, I mean, for an hour or two? Like, what can you, and people would donate money. Like they would help us out. But that's how it was. And so then I sent Crank It Up to what is it in Rochester? AAF. No, that's Boston.
That's
Anyway,
Boston.
yeah, sent it to a station in Rochester and they played Crank It Up. And I remember calling because I would follow up and call them back. And that was back before the rates go down at 7 o'clock. This was when you paid long distance from a landline that I would be calling
Mm.
people. And I called and I got the DJ and he said, I go, I'm wondering if you received the 45 I sent from the Ross. He goes, sounds great on the air, man. And I'm like, they were playing it. So I was thrilled. And so Pete Morticelli was in Rochester. And so Pete wound up asking to manage us. And so we signed to Areola, which was a metal label in Germany. I don't know if you're familiar with that label, but they
Oh, yeah.
folded. Yeah. Are you familiar,
Oh,
you
yeah.
said?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So we signed with Areola, and I think there's a test pressing actually with Areola. And then Areola folded in America, I believe, and Arista picked it up and they picked up some of the artists, and the artists they picked up they had Air Supply and Aretha Franklin, Arista, Clive Davis, but they picked up Crocus and us. And Mike Bone to this day is, still a buddy. And he was our A&R guy, and he was the one who really said, I want the Rods on the label. So that was us. But when it came time for tour support, Air Supply got those glowing rocks, and Aretha Franklin got some kind of life-size poster. Like they got all kind, and we got nothing. So Arista was not the right label
They,
for us.
they didn't push you.
They had no clue what to do with a heavy metal band. And then we played at CBGB's for a showcase for Arista. So now all these little minions from Arista come in and they're running down on this outside in the white limo and they're all like, hi. So we're playing and that club is small. It's a cool club. I'm sure you guys know of it because
Of
you're
course.
New Yorkers.
Yep.
And so there we are. So now we're playing in this club and we're so loud. I remember David doing his guitar solo and looking at the meters on the board for my bass drums. My bass drum meter was like almost in the red. I'm not playing a freaking note, but the meter from my microphones are already pegging. I'm like, how are we gonna hear this? So Dave Dave is doing his solo and he goes out and walks on the tables and he winds up kicking a beer on Clive. And that was, so then the next thing is Clive gets up and he's gone. So I guess, whatever. It was a funny story, but a sad story because I think maybe if Clive had liked this, we might have, you know, had
End
some
up
more
on
tours to
Atlantic.
play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but that's how, that's how it went. Like it was very quick to switch from Areola and they picked us up. And of course, our lawyer at the time said, don't do it. Don't go with Peter. He's small time. Don't do it. And but like it's a record deal. And when you're young and you're desperate and it's like, let's go. Like we didn't know if anybody else would ever sign us. So we were thrilled that we did. And in hindsight, it was a good thing. It got us out there.
And with the contract, did you have rights? Do you have publishing rights, or do you have to give them away? What was the deal with the contract?
We signed a deal with MCA for our publishing. And so, but things have reverted now. I went after that right away. And I've retained all of our rights ever since from that out from those two albums on. And David and I write about it in my book, but David and I got into a thing where it was involved lawyers, and it was, you want to go to Vakken and play? And I said, yeah, I'll go support you, like your new solo project, because they want 3 songs from the Rods. And I said, sure, I'll go. You don't have to pay me. I'll just go for expenses. And then I was asked to give up the publishing. And I was like, there's no fucking way am I giving up publishing. I'm going for free. I've retained all of our publishing up to that point. Why would I give it away for nothing?
Right.
And so it was a big, big thing and went to the lawyer. And it turned out that David could have the Rods and I could have the Rods. Like it could be Carl Kennedy's Rods and David could have David Feinstein's Rods. Like we
Oh,
could
if you
both
went
have
your
the
separate
Rods.
ways.
If we split, right, that's right. So it was just determined. But that was, but I wasn't giving up the publishing. And years later, when I was able to give David a fairly large check from licensing our catalog, which was licensed. It's returning to us. We only have, I don't know how many years left, but not a ton. But we licensed it. I licensed it, but everything I've ever done since has been licensing. I'll never give it away. And so we patched that up a long time ago. But like, he was like, well, what's the big deal? What's the big deal? I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Because, David doesn't pay attention to those things. And but then once he got the check, he was like, oh, I see
Now I
now.
see.
That's the
I,
big deal.
I almost knew that was,
Paul was smart back then.
yeah, yeah. But that's the music business, and we've remained friends ever, all along. But even in that, there was never a raised voice or anything. It was strongly worded emails and whatever, but it was never anything.
So on the first album tour, were you supporting anybody? Did they make you go out and headline? What was the deal with that?
Yes, yes. We wound up doing a bunch of bands. I know we did an arena tour with Foghat, which was cool.
Wow.
And I remember the first show we're playing, and Peter, Peter was new. Peter didn't know anything. He was learning about these different different tiers of the music business. So he didn't know that if you want the monitor, you don't have your own monitor person. When it's supper time for them, if you want them to stay, you have to pay them, or those guys are eating. So we're on stage I think the first one was in Texas, throughout Texas, doing these stadiums with them, arenas. And I'm playing, and I can't hear a freaking thing, nothing at all. I can't hear, and I'm like waving to the monitor guy, and I'm like, "Hey, gotta turn it up." And I look, and there's nothing there. There's nobody there at the console. Zero, nobody around. That was the first. Then after that, you know, wound up paying them.
Sure.
But that first show was like, oh my God, the hell, it was horrible. So, but yeah, we did that. We did a bunch of things. I can't remember all the days. I should go pull it up and put it on my website
Did
so
you
I
stay
have it.
within the States, or did you go out into
No,
Europe?
we stayed in the first album. We were in the States,
Okay.
and then Sounds gave us a 5-star review for the first album,
Hmm.
and that's when Iron Maiden tapped us to do Beast on the Road,
Oh,
and that's
wow.
when we did 30 dates with Iron Maiden.
And that was still with the first album.
That was that first album, and it was we recorded the second album in England. So, but the album came out. So we were on tour with them when the album came out, when Wild Dogs did come out.
That came out in
So
'82.
yeah, and we were on the road with them, but we had been recording it while we were on the road. Um, No. Sorry, I have to back that up. We went and recorded, then we went on tour, and then after the tour, we went back and mixed. So, but it was out shortly after, but we weren't on tour with them then.
Can we talk
So I
about
was
the album cover? I mean, that is one of the iconic album covers of metal for the '80s.
the
You
Wild
know?
Dogs.
Oh,
Yeah, absolutely.
fantastic.
And
Fantastic.
I
That
learned,
you even kept going as you know with the newest album. You brought the dogs back also.
uh-huh. But
So
then I found out in Brazil that the Wild Dogs, that logo, that painting is iconic. Not really related to the rods per se, but it's just a huge iconic thing in Brazil for heavy metal.
well, isn't it is it Cerebus the
Cerberus, yeah,
yeah
Cerberus.
the Greek three-headed dog,
God,
yeah,
guarding the gates of hell.
right.
Hmm.
Right. So was there original drawings before that one, or did you have
Yes, no,
choices?
we yes. I remember seeing it on the cells. It was done in cells, and on a plane, Peter showed me. I was looking out through the window. It was incredible. Yeah, it was really pretty amazing. And that guy Les, who drew it, who painted it, he's like he goes, I had no clue. He goes, I'd forgotten about that. Like, he had no clue all these years that it was something that's had reared its head, no pun intended. Um, that he had no idea that people still talked about it.
Does he have the original drawing, or one of you guys have it?
I don't know who has it. I
Okay.
never have. And
I
then
mean, I seen
Eric,
that on the backs of jackets. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
It's right up there with Killers. To be honest with you, that's how I feel about it. It really is an iconic album cover, and the songs are tight. Did you feel me? Your material on that album is how do you feel about the material? Because I think it's fantastic.
I thought it was some of the best songs I'd written, and I thought David too. I thought our engineering was poor and the mix was poor. Like it could have been really much better. And I personally wanted to stick with Chris Bubach, who has gone on to do gold and platinum albums, was a great engineer, and I was very close with the family. I was family friends, and I wanted to do it underground, just like we had done it, guerrilla warfare. But they wanted us to go to England, and they brought us this guy, um, Martin Pearson. He just sucked. He was horrible, and he had me. If anybody's ever seen me play, you know that you don't have to ask me to hit harder. I hit hard. But Martin had me tune the drums, and we actually bent bass drum beaters. That's how hard he made me play. And the drum, and it was like there was no finesse involved. You're just clubbing the drums,
Mm.
and it was really horrible. And I should have just said screw you, but again, you're young, and you don't know. Like, oh, this guy must know, but he didn't. I'm looking at like the EQ, like what's up with that guitar EQ, and
And what was
so
what did the playback sound like?
it it sounded okay, but I was questioning it the whole time. But I can only say so much.
Yeah.
So anyway, it concerned me that I thought the songs were really good, but it wasn't really the way representative of the band, the sound, the way I was playing certainly. But there are elements I love about it, and I also love the songwriting. I think it's a great album,
It
one of our
is.
best. It's just a little disappointing that it wasn't sonically more like the first album. That's just my opinion.
When you guys played the Paramount in Staten Island, it was you, Vandenberg, and Metallica.
Right,
And Mustaine was still in the band
right.
at the time. So was that pre first album?
No,
So you had the
mm-mm.
first album out.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'd already
And
done the tour with Maiden. And in fact, Steve Harris was hanging around in our dressing room, everybody's dressing room. Well, Lars was there, like we're hanging out. That's when Lars actually told me that he was going to leave Megaforce. They were looking at making that change. And what did I think about it? And of course, it was hard for me to say that I thought it was the right move to make because Johnny Z, to his last day, was my close friend. We spoke several times a week, and but I felt it was the right move for them.
that's when they jumped to
Not
Elektra.
Yeah, that's how they got to well I knew Michael Alago was going to sign them. So Michael Alago was ear to the ground. And people like, oh my God, it's amazing that they were signed to a major label. I'm like, they sold tens of thousands as an independent. It was a freaking no-brainer.
Right.
Back then, if you sold 5,000 as an independent, you were gods. When you're sending multiples, tens of thousands, then maybe there's something for a bigger audience, which obviously was.
So now
What was your opinion on Vandenberg at
go
that time?
ahead.
I thought they were really good, but they were, and I still chat with Adrian once in a while, via internet. But I always thought he was great. I thought the songs, this Burning Heart was a
That
great
was a
song.
single then.
Yeah, it was a single, and but they weren't really heavy, and everything was moving more toward thrash and heavy. So
Right.
they were a little like they were out of their element basically when you see because that was changing of the guard. The Rods early on were I don't want to say changing of the guard, but kind of pushing the envelope for heavy metal a little bit. But then when you had Metallica, Anthrax, Slayer, like they were the changing of the guard. And
Overkill.
Overkill,
Yeah.
like those guys. Bobby, what a great guy! Just spoke with him
I
recently.
love Gus. He's the best. He's the best.
Bobby is great, but anyway, they it was changing of the guard, and you could see it. The fans knew that, and so Vandenberg was like the Rods. Essentially, we were passe, you know. And
Yeah,
my
Vandenberg
friend,
was more like a melodic rock
more
sound.
melodic, but
Yeah,
really
Yeah,
great.
Blackmore Shanker type of
yeah.
style.
And the
Guitar
singer
playing.
Bert was a really, really good singer. He still is, and he's in his 70s. He still sounds great.
Yeah,
But they
those
were
guys.
they never really clicked like in the States. They were always a band that like the guys that were really into music in the States knew who they were, but they were really always like a European type of band. They had a very
And,
European sound
and
to
the
them.
funny thing about it was because Burning Heart was getting airplay.
It
So
was.
if you like the song itself, now you have like chicks, 14, 50 going to see that, and look who's opening up Metallica and the Rods.
I know,
So they're like,
yeah,
what the hell's this going on before Vandenberg comes out too?
yeah. Hey, so I had mentioned to you I have to leave early, and I do
Oh,
now. I'm actually going to be late. I'm
okay.
happy to continue this. It
Yes.
just
You
in
tell
half an
how much
hour,
how
so
much more time you want.
whatever. But I have to go now, and
Oh, okay, okay.
so
So
we can
let's make a part two.
yeah, let's do part two. Then I'll just check in with you in a little bit. Then I'll
Because
be
I got a
back
lot of
here.
questions to ask you about Sammy Abigail. That was my favorite singer.
Oh, okay, cool. I got a lot of stories about him. He used to
Well,
live with me.
that's
So
fabulous. That's
Well,
yeah,
Carl, do you want? All right. So listen, we're gonna sign off now. This could be part one of Carl's interview, and we'll talk to you. Don't go anywhere. We'll talk to you after this, and we'll reach out and do it again. We're only on the second album. We got to
that's
talk about
right.
spreading the disease,
And
armed and dangerous, Jack Star. We have a million things to talk with Carl with. So
yeah,
everybody, thank you for being here. We'll be back real soon. This is only part one of the interview. Take care. Everybody have a great day. Live hard, rock hard. Bye.